See if that works. Greetings, folks. Dimensions and Dementites. As always, it's a joy to be here on a Monday with my plosives and electronic noise. How are you today? As always, self-production means I'm checking all the feeds. There's no way to do it until it's live. But how are you? It's Monday. We're back. We got some weird greetings, folks. Happening. Dimensions and Dementites. And there's my 30-second. As always, it's a joy to be. What's cool is I can talk to myself there. That's always fun. The only person who'll put up with my shit is probably me. How are you, folks? And Everett, how are you? So happy that you're here again on a Monday. Likewise, RB Kratz and Lori, you folks are so kind and great to me. Let me turn the music down. Rich Gregory, what's up, my friend? What is on the Indian food menu today, Rich Gregory, for you? Because I got some tablas that we can put into the mix. You know, just to make sure we've got the flavor. This is all just sound check, folks. Yeah, Rich Gregory, what did you have? What did any of you have for lunch today? Because one of the things we talk about is, hey, what did you eat today? What did you have on Meatless Monday? So we're live on Facebook. See if that's peaking. As always, folks, let me know if the sound could be made different in any way. But as always, we talk about what did we eat today? What can we do to go meatless one day a week and maybe beyond that? But we're just here to chat and share some recipes, share some ideas. I'm taking live questions here on Facebook, as well as live on YouTube. I know some of you watching YouTube. We're live on Twitch. We're also live on Twitter. So it's all over the place. So, okay, we're settling in. My special guest today, he's coming up in just a short little time. He's going to call in. My dear friend, I'm so happy to let me start with just the friendship and the love I have for this gentleman. Is a gentleman named Artimus Pyle, who I met. We were trying to figure it out yesterday, something like 20 years ago, and he came to see my band, my Project Object, my Zappa tribute band. We were down here in Asheville, and here's this guy in the audience with a big cowboy hat, and you can see the picture. I put a picture on Facebook just moments ago, and there's this distinctive-looking guy, and he's hanging around with a few friends at the end of the show, and he comes up and says, "You guys were great, man." "Oh, thanks, bro." You know, it was our first time in Asheville, I believe. And really loved it, man. I saw Zappa back in the 70s, man. It was great, you know. And, "Oh, dude, thank you so much, man. I really love when you did that song from Joe's Garage, and then you did that other tune from One Size Fits All. But then you guys did that instrumental that's at the end of that live album." You know, he was totally, you know, into the details. "Oh, bro, we just love this town. Coming down here has been great. You guys have welcomed us in." He goes, "Yeah, man, I used to play in this band, you know, big Southern rock band, Leonard Skinner. You might have." "What? What are you talking? Dude, you're Artimus Pyle?" So that was it, and we've been friends ever since. I've seen him play many times. I've been fortunate to have him play in my Zappa tribute band, which was spectacular. Um, so so he's a riot. But the other half of this story is that, like many of us, I was 13 or 14 when the let's say I was 12 when that terrible plane accident happened, of course, and they lost some band members and some crew members. And then they put that album out, Street Survivors, and they had to change the cover because they had flames on it and all that. So I remember that was the first time they came into my consciousness, because all those songs are on the radio, right? What's your name, little girl? What's your name? That was like a cultural moment, man. Hearing that kind of redneck kind of accent on New York radio, I was like, what's this? And you kind of knew Freebird a little bit, but that was like, so that's Artimus on drums. What a great track, right? And then you look at the album cover, and he's got a T-shirt. It says vegetarian. So you kind of go, what? That seemed like the most weirdo shit in 1978. I barely knew what that was. So Artimus, that's another thing we laugh about and talk about, because he's been a vegetarian for all those years and doing it in the South in a Southern rock band, right? I mean, here you have guys that are just, it's a barbecue and ribs culture in a lot of places down here. But also, if you go a little further, it's a very plant-based culture. Also, there's a lot of great Southern foods are vegetarian. The fried green tomatoes and the collard greens, easy to leave the turkey or the bacon out of it. The sweet potatoes and the okra dishes and all the rice dishes and the rice and beans dishes, the New Orleans cuisine, tons of meat everywhere. But if you really just get into that zone, you realize, there's all these wonderful cornbread and all these wonderful side dishes and salads and things. And if you're not vegan, that opens up all the different, state by state, there's different types of macaroni and cheese and pimento cheese dishes. And so we've had a lot of great talks about what it's like in the 70s doing what he did. Here's that picture. You might remember. There's Artimus, and unfortunately some of his buddies that had passed away on that terrible plane crash. Here's another one. You might remember this album cover. Remember this, y'all? Street Survivors. So Artimus is still very much active, still playing. He's really healthy and active, and just playing drums all the time. He just did a show, which we're going to talk about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, in Nashville, I believe. They did this very safe, distanced show. He's 72 years old, from Louisville, Kentucky, and they just played. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his music. We're going to talk about his life, and we're going to talk about this new movie. There's a new movie out, which we're going to hear about. It's the story of this, the accident, and kind of the history of the band around that. So cool. We're gonna we'll come back to that when he's here. So let's see what y'all are talking about. Anyone on YouTube? I see a couple people watching on YouTube. Are there any questions there? Let's start with YouTube, because I snooze on the YouTube folks asking questions sometimes. So okay, great. On the Facebook chat, let's keep saying hello here. Who do we have? I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. It's what a time we're in, folks. Golly. Right? But as I always promise, this is your oasis from the tsunami of news. So we're not gonna, we could do a whole show just on the news. I'm not gonna not talk about a few things, but we're here to talk about food. And the one thing I do keep touching base on, I want to remind you folks, is to always check in on the workers who are doing all this crucial work. Let's see here. I think we got Artimus coming in. Hello.
Hey, man.
Hey, Mr. Artimus Pyle. We are on the air. Beautiful. How are you, man?
How you doing, Andre? Is this FaceTime or are we
No,
going to see each other?
no. It'll just be a phone call. But when we work out the technology, we will get you on FaceTime. Yeah. But right now, just
Okay.
a phone call. Say hi to the folks. A bunch of people are listening and watching already. And,
Hey, everybody. Peace, love, and happiness.
How are you, man? So I've just been telling the people a bit about. I was remembering that you and I met. You walked up to me. You came to see my Zappa band, and you came up and said hi at Stella Blue, I guess. And I was just telling the people about that. You remember that?
Oh, man, of course. I mean, you're one of the most monster guitar players that I've ever played with and heard. I mean, you're up there with the top guys that I know, and we both love Frank. The late great Frank Zappa, and so right away, drummers like me like to play with guitar players like you.
Well, I'm stunned and appreciate you saying that. It's very kind, and of course, it's been an honor to jam with you. We did that show and here in Asheville, right? Of course, and I've seen you play a few times. Of course, that's been great. But thank you for those kind words.
Wasn't that the Asheville Music Hall?
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. It was called. Yes, it was called Stella Blue then.
That's right. Stella Blue.
Right.
Yeah.
It was Stella Blue, and back then, and then they changed it to Asheville Music Hall. That's right. But that's where our friendship started. And then I saw your band play a bunch of times, and I've never seen Skinner, unfortunately, but yeah, man. And then maybe it's 2 years now. We did you got together with Project Object. We did some rehearsals, and you did that show with Danny Wally, which was pretty amazing.
Man, I love that so much, and all the rehearsals over at your house, and and the truth is, man, I'm a good drummer.
Absolutely.
But it takes a monster drummer to be able to play all of that Frank stuff, Vinnie Colaiuta and Terry Bozzio, and I mean the list goes on of insane drummers. And I did the best I could, man. We did like a 3-hour set, right?
We did two. It was at least 3 hours of music. It was crazy, and we even.
And
snuck in.
And it's like, man, I started cramping at the very end because I was playing all of these songs with everything I had, man. I was laying into it and just trying to make them sound as good as I can in my way. I'm never going to be able to play those drum parts exactly like the other guys did, but I can make it sound right, and I can put my spin on it.
Sure.
And I'm happy with that. I don't like to sit, for hours and work out the exact. I mean, what would I do if I played a Neil Peart song? I'd never get it done. Learning his part exactly like he played it. So I just do the best I can with my injuries. I have a broken left arm, which has limited rotation. My right leg was broken in 21 places in that last motorcycle wreck after my third airplane crash. And I don't have the same dexterity and in my right ankle. I used to have a pretty pliable ankle, but it's fused. Everything below my knee and my right leg is stainless steel, and my ankle is basically fused. So when I play a drum beat on the bass drum, I'm literally lifting my entire leg with my my muscle, my the above the knee muscle group,
Sure.
and that's why I play double bass drum so that I can make up a little bit for the fact that my right foot is not as fast as it used to be, and I used to have a lot of. And I still got it with my left foot because I rabbit foot on my hi hat.
Right.
That's when I keep my time. I'll be keeping time with my left foot, and then my other three limbs, can play off of that because that's where the time, remains. And I guess in drummers' world, you're a drummer too. I guess they call it rabbit foot.
Right.
And it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
No, it really is, man. And I remember you you made that point when we were rehearsing. You said, "Look, I'm gonna have to, I've got some issues here with one of my legs, but no one, you killed it, man. You came in there and did this stuff that, as you said, some of it you'd never played before in your life, songs you've heard for 45 years,
Yeah.
but I think you did a great job. There is some video on YouTube. If people go to YouTube and just punch in Project Object, Artimus Pyle, there's some great footage up there, and I hope we do it again. When this is all over.
That would be wonderful, man, and have a little familiar and comfortable, and maybe bring in a couple of drummers, so that I could concentrate on like 5 or 6 songs, and we could bring some guys in and just spread the joy, spread the, because I'm telling you, at my age then when we did that, it's not even my age really. It's just the fact that any drummer that plays solid for 3 hours and has,
sure,
a whole bunch of rehearsals leading up to that, I at the end of that set that night we were live down there, at the
Gray Eagle.
The Gray Eagle. I like to call it the Gleagle. The Gleagle. But we were down there at the Gray Eagle, man, and that last we had one more song, and man, I all of a sudden my muscles started. I started going into fetal position.
Right.
Now, since remember I was really cramping bad, and since then there's stuff called TheraWorks, and you spray it on your muscles, and it's like magnesium. It's got a lot of magnesium and potassium and other agents that gets into your muscles quickly, and it really stops. It stops the cramping.
Right.
But man, we had the one song left, and I came out and made a Frank Zappa-esque comment to the crowd, and then
I remember.
I think we got through the last song because man, I loved Frank. I got to hang out with him a few times. I think had Frank been able to survive, I might have gotten to play tambourine and cowbell, or maybe even a little bit of drums with Frank on an album. And, because he knew how much I loved his music. Sure. And all the musicians that played with him. I mean, any musician that played with Frank, my God, what was like state of the art, LA, that's a whole different standard out there. Guys like Steve Vai and,
sure.
Vinnie Colaiuta and Ruth Underwood. I mean, Ruth, oh my God, you never knew what they were doing until you realized that was this incredible lady playing xylophone. You're going, oh my God. But so Frank knew very much from our first meeting, where I was introduced to him by Leon Wilkeson, our bass player for Leonard Skinner. And we were at Maple Leaf Gardens up in Canada, in Toronto. And, I didn't know Frank was there, and we were opening up for the Doobie Brothers, and it was sold out. The place, Maple Leaf Gardens, I mean, it was packed to capacity. And Leon goes, he comes up and grabs me, and I do a really good Leon. He goes, Artimus, come on. I want to show you something, And I thought he was going to introduce me to a blonde, or something, because that was Leon loved blondes. And so I followed him, and I started saying, Leon, we've walked around the whole place just about. And, and all of a sudden I see this dark figure with a long coat, and the collar turned up, and everything. And I walked over, and Leon says, Frank, this is Artimus Pyle of Leonard Skinner. And, he's a big fan of yours. He listens to you every day on the road. And, I think it made an impact a little. It impressed Frank. And Frank was never impressed, or didn't act like he was.
Not easily.
But I could, really, and I could see that Frank was like a little bit, oh, wow, this heathen, this long-haired ape-man looking heathen from Leonard Skinner, this Southern rock band, is actually a fan of mine. And and then he invited us to come to his show and at the Maple Leaf Gardens the night after we opened up for the Doobie Brothers. And I got the whole band to go, including Ronnie Van Zant. I said, guys, you've got to come and see this guy. And just please, for me, just this once, just do this, And so everybody in the band, everybody was like, and Frank gave us third row center.
Wow.
And I always wondered who were the 10 people that had third row center, that were kicked out of their seats so that, the band of crazies could come and watch Frank. And, see, Frank did cut his show in half. And what he did is he changed. We sat at one end of Maple Leaf Gardens, and we played to the entire arena. Frank set up in the middle of Maple Leaf Gardens looking sideways.
Oh, wow.
So he set up a little differently so that, that it would be packed, but there would be plenty of space. So, so that was the night after we opened up for the Doobie Brothers, and he invited us to come to the show. And we thought, maybe we'll be standing off to the side somewhere. And we had third row center, it's like
amazing.
But Frank did his thing, man, and he did Titties and Beer, right? And he actually said this on stage. This is something you never forget. Frank goes, I was saying to my boys in Leonard Skinner just the other day, there's nothing more important than titties and beer. And I swear, man, I looked over at Ronnie. I leaned up and I looked over at Ronnie. He was sitting about 2 people down from me, 2 band members down. And Ronnie, man, a big grin, smile came over his face, ear to ear.
Sure.
And he was so proud of that moment. I could tell that Ronnie really, was like, wow, this really amazing person, is speaking to the band.
Yeah.
And from stage, and a little shout out. And it was quite incredible, and I will never forget it. And so it came to intermission. Frank liked to do an intermission because he'd play a long set, do an intermission, and come back and play another long set.
Right.
So, we were in intermission, and Ronnie comes up to me and he goes, I'm going to go back to the hotel now. And I said, okay. And he goes, you're right. The guy is a genius.
Wow.
He said, but Artimus, this is Ronnie Van Zant talking to me. He says, I'll never forget. He goes, Artimus, he's weird, man. He's weird.
To say the
and
least.
I said, exactly. I said, exactly, man. So you did get it. You got it. And so anyway, that was my first. That was the first gig.
Sure.
Of his after that night that we opened up. So that was our second hang. And then one time in London, England, the Hammersmith Odeon.
Sure.
You probably played Hammersmith Odeon.
No, I haven't. I've worked at a few places in London, including Royal Albert Hall, and I've played some small clubs, but no, never been to the famous Odeon. No.
Yeah.
So that was about 79 or something the next time?
Yeah.
Probably Adrian Ballou.
Well, no, this was when Terry Bozzio was still on drums.
Okay.
And they we were headquartered in London. We would go out on the continent and play different, up Scandinavia and then down to France and stuff. And we always headquartered in London. Right. And he was playing at the Hammersmith Odeon, and I was backstage, and I got to sit there while Frank was tuning. And this parade of people that would come in and just try to impress Frank, sure. Say something really cool that Frank would go, oh man, and so some people were very successful. Frank was like, oh, very cool, and then some people was, like next, and but this one girl came in, a beautiful Playboy bunny, blonde.
Okay.
And the reason I knew her is because she was dating Alan Collins.
Oh.
Our guitar player, right? And we were at another hotel, and I had seen her at the hotel with Alan.
Sure.
Like, a couple nights before. Well, she shows up backstage, with Frank, and evidently, that was his main squeeze that evening.
Okay. Okay.
And she looked at me when Frank wasn't looking, and went like, shh.
Oh man!
like act like you don't know me, right?
Right.
And
drama.
But she was a really beautiful, drop dead gorgeous Playboy bunny, and Frank Zappa was Frank Zappa. Who wouldn't want to be, hanging out with Frank?
That was another legendary, part of the story, of course. Tell us a little bit. So I know you've told me this, that a couple of your favorite bands are Frank Zappa and Weather Report. Isn't that true?
Well, yeah, I'm a jazz freak. I love everything from Billie Holiday and John Coltrane, Miles Davis. I got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Miles Davis. And of course that particular night, it was posthumous, of course. And Herbie Hancock was making the induction.
Wow.
So, I am a huge Herbie Hancock, and anybody that plays with him.
Sure.
Anybody that played with Joseph Zawinul from Weather Report.
Sure.
Anybody that played with John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Sure.
Billy Cobham, Jerry Goodman on violin.
Yeah.
It was like, what a band, the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Oh.
And of course, two other albums that changed my life that were instrumental albums were Wired and Blow by Blow by Jeff Beck.
Genius. All that stuff.
Yeah.
These fusion records are in my blood. You can't see it, but I just held up an Alan Holdsworth album that has Narada Michael Walden on it. So I know we sit around.
Oh, Narada Michael Walden, man, I loved him. He was one of my favorite drummers. Lenny White, Billy Cobham, Narada Michael. But the thing is, man, I met and talked with at one of the Christmas jams that Warren Haynes does here in,
sure.
Up in Asheville.
Sure.
With I'm having a mind blank. The guy you just mentioned, Alan Holdsworth.
Alan Holdsworth, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got to speak to him, who's another one of my favorites. But it's like Stanley Clarke was one of my main. I would listen to every Stanley Clarke album that was out there, and he'd have the amazing drummers on there. And I did get to meet Billy Cobham, in the studio out in California, and talked with him a while, and showed him my new bass drum pedals which he designed. I had 6 of them, brand new. I had a flight case made for my new chain drive footboard pedals that were like Camco footboard and a chain drive that Billy had designed. They were super ultra light and powerful and strong, and they were chain drive.
Sure.
And I had 6 brand new ones, and I took Billy back to where we were set up recording there at the record plant in LA, and I opened up the top of my flight case,
sure.
and there were 6 little compartments, chocolate velvet, like a chocolate velvet material, and each one of the pedals was in it's like its little coffin. And man, he was impressed. I was like, wow, because he was there with Quincy Jones.
Okay.
And I was sitting in the studio with Quincy Jones there at Record Plant, and Quincy goes, "You recognize that guy?" I looked through. It was the Brothers Johnson, and they were laying down tracks.
Wow.
And the drummer, all the way through all the glass and the drum booth at the back, it was Billy Cobham. And I go, yeah, I recognize him, because John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu, those two albums, Intermounting Flame and
Sure.
Birds of Fire.
Birds of Fire. Forget about it, man.
Forget about it, man. That stuff just changes your life.
Sure.
And who would, I've heard a lot of people say and everything, but as far as if you had to pick number one in the world that is alive, a living guitar player, of course, besides yourself, Andre, wow. I would have to say, and I kind of mean that. No, but I would have to say, Jeff Beck has got to be, because every other guitar player, Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton, they all sing his praises, and he's just got a way of playing. Do you know his bass player, that girl Tal?
Tal Wilkenfeld. I don't know her, but huge fan. Yes, I mean, like you, Beck is right at the top for me. I mean, in my top 3 or 4 guitarists, John McLaughlin. That's my all-time favorite, and I know he's up there for you too. But yeah, man, we've sat around and chatted about this, our love for fusion and all these guys. I got a couple questions, people coming in. Someone's asking, do you like David Sanchez? Remember him, David Sanchez, keyboard player?
The sax player?
No. Sanchez, I guess you pronounce it. He was the keyboard player for the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen. But then he did those fusion records in the 70s. He had a band called Tone. Do you know that stuff?
Okay, Tone. Now,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. See, and I like that music, but I didn't know who was on keys. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time in my life, I've been on the road. I've spent my life on the road, and didn't have time to. I know what I like when I heard it.
Sure.
But if he's, like Al Di Meola and
sure.
Chick Corea. And those cats, and of course Adrian Belew. I mean, King Crimson, man, that album was the one with the big face on the front.
Sure.
In the Court of the Crimson King.
Yeah.
That album changed my life. So there's so many players out there that I love and admire and respect. And to me it's great because just like you just turned me onto David Sanchez.
Yeah. It's never ending.
It's like now I can, on my little Siri or my Pandora, I can say, I want to hear some of this stuff, and the band was called Tone.
Yes, David Sanchez and Tone,
yeah.
And he's got a new album out, which I forget the name of, but yeah, he's one of those guys. You've also heard him. He played with Sting and Peter Gabriel a lot in the 80s and 90s. So okay. He's another cat. So I had a question on the music though. So I mean, I know you've told me stories of being on the Skinner bus, and you're listening to all this stuff. You got your headphones, you got your little cassette recorder. You told me you had all the stuff as the years went by. You had 8-track, you had this, you had that. What were the other guys listening to? Like, what was their? They thought this shit was weird, but what were they listening to, in general?
Well, Rolling Stones and rock and roll, and Pete Seeger, and Bob Seger,
okay.
and I mean Alan Collins, his favorite song was "Paint Many Colors" by Dolly Parton.
Wow, Dolly Parton. You glitched a little bit there,
I've heard
Dolly
Alan.
Parton. Wow.
Well, Dolly, I've done several shows with her, and we're from the same part of Tennessee.
Okay,
and
right.
For all I know, Dolly and I could be related.
Right.
And we just before the COVID-19 hit, we did a cancer benefit in Nashville, Tennessee, at Ryman Auditorium, the Greenville Library,
Right.
and we the original place, and we were asked to do Sweet Home Alabama, Freebird, and Sweet Home and Simple Man, and Dolly was the headliner.
Wow.
And she hung out with all of us in the band and our crew, took pictures, and our crew, had pictures with Dolly, and they were all blushing. It was the cutest thing you've ever seen. That all these grown men just blushing like you wouldn't believe, because Dolly is genuine. She's so friendly, and she's real, and she's a humanitarian.
Sure.
As far as I'm concerned, in the world, as far as musician, singer, songwriter, movie star, humanitarian, and just all around, hot chick, Dolly's she's number one. And I'm in love with Dolly, as every man is. But and I love her for all the right reasons. But the thing is, she's married, and as soon as I found out that she was married, I never said one inappropriate thing to her. I was going to ask her out, and because I didn't realize she was married, and one of the band members mentioned, well, you better ask her husband first, and I laughed, and I said, Dolly's not married, and he said, oh yes she is.
She is.
And she's been married to the same guy for a long time, which just shows you what kind of a woman she is and what kind of a marriage they decided to have. I'd give anything to be married to that girl that I first married, but I was an unfaithful husband.
Wow.
I was a cad, man. I remained faithful for a long, long time. And when I went out on the road with Skinner, I was gone for 8-9 months, and I fell off that wagon. And once you're unfaithful one time, you can't, it's like you can't get unpregnant.
It falls apart.
Once you're unfaithful, and that's my biggest regret of my whole life, is that I was not a faithful husband. I'd give anything to be that guy, still married to that same sweet girl. And she was portrayed in the movie by an actress, and the actress, asked me, she said, how should I play Patricia, your wife, in this movie? And she's got a major role. I mean, there's Patricia, the girl that plays my wife, is in a lot of the movie. And so she said, how should I play your wife? And I said, listen, play her as one of the sweetest people you've ever met, that is completely genuine, and everybody loves her, and that's the way the girl played her. And, yesterday, I talked to my first wife, Patricia.
Oh, wow.
We're very good friends. We have two, sons, Christopher and Marshall, who wrote music for the movie.
Yeah.
And you know those guys. And
of course,
so
I've played
Pat and I talked.
Sorry.
Yeah, you played with them. But Pat and I spoke because, tomorrow is the 44th, I think, anniversary of the plane crash.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. It was 1977, right?
1977.
So 43 years. Yeah, 43 years tomorrow. I was going to
43.
I was just going to pivot to that and ask you exactly that question, man. Well, first off, look at how the universe lined up, because you and I planned this over the last couple of weeks, and it just randomly ended up being today. And I was talking to you yesterday, and I said, oh, my God. And I forgot to mention, of course, it's in your mind. You never forget that day. But here we are, right, at the anniversary. So tell us a little bit. You're going into that right now, but tell us a little bit about this. And I want to tell the folks out there, I've put it up on the screen for people. It's called Street Survivors, the true story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. It's a brand new movie, folks. Came out just in February, at the very beginning of COVID. Tell us a little bit about that and your thoughts right now as this anniversary.
Well, yeah, we premiered the movie just before COVID hit at the Los Angeles Free Film Festival. I was there. I got to walk the red carpet with all the young actors and actresses that played us in the movie.
Right.
And they did a great job. And Cleopatra Films did an incredible job hanging in there. A lot of film companies would have dropped it like a hot potato, as soon as the first lawsuit dropped.
Sure.
And they hung in there through this whole thing. We took it to the Court of Appeals, and were ruled unanimously by 3 judges, that we were allowed to do the movie, and we finished it and everything. It had a $1,800,000 budget.
Wow.
Variety in Los Angeles gave us a very fair review on our movie, and the kids that the young men and women that played us in the movie, all the actors and actresses, did an incredible job.
It's stunning.
Cleopatra did an incredible job. The director, Jared Cohn, he and I sat down and wrote a screenplay, and then from that screenplay, he wrote the script.
Right.
And so it was just a collaborative effort on everybody. A guy named Christopher Rittenauer did the film score, where there are 3 pieces that play as background, kind of like a Game of Thrones type background.
Sure.
That's always kind of looming during certain parts of the movie. And then my son Chris wrote 4 songs for the movie, and my son Marshall wrote a pivotal, very important song in the movie that actually mentions Asheville, and it's called Southern Feeling, and the hook is "Live each day like it could be the last day of your life."
Wow.
And it was very appropriate. And when you see the movie, you'll hear Marshall singing as we come up to the plane for the last time.
Oh, I love it.
So I was really proud of my band, the APB,
right?
All Points Bulletin, which is Jerry Lida and Scott Rains and Brad Durden and David Fowler. And David's the guy that introduced me to Dolly Parton. We did a gig out in Arkansas with Dolly, and I will be forever indebted to Dave for introducing me to Dolly, because I truly think the world of her, and to be able to meet her and hang out with her. And boy, when we did Sweet Home and Freebird there at Ryman Auditorium, I was told that Dolly had a smile from ear to ear, and heard the crowd, because we took the roof off the Ryman. But we did I think a Grammy award-winning soundtrack. My band APB, they wrote a song with Warren Haynes. Scott and Jerry wrote a song with Warren Haynes called Street Survivor, and the movie's called Street Survivors with an S.
Sure.
And so the title track, I swear to you, Andre, I think this is a bona fide Southern rock hit. If it wasn't for COVID, I think we'd be getting airplay all over the country. This is an unbelievably strong song.
Sure.
As good as any Southern rock hit I've ever heard. And I'm so proud of the band. We arranged it. We recorded it up in Winston-Salem. We got it in under the wire to go in the movie. It plays over the credits at the end, and of course, on the CD and the vinyl. We put out a blue vinyl and a white vinyl.
Nice.
Full LP. And on those, we played all the songs in their entirety. Now, in a movie, if you get a song in a movie, you're only going to hear a little piece of that song. They're not going to play usually, the entire track. But the soundtrack has it, and I think that we have a Grammy Award-winning soundtrack and an award-winning movie that tells something that happened in history that is very accurate. And, we did the best we could on a small budget, and with blood-sucking weasel attorneys coming at us at every turn. So I am very proud of the movie. I'm very proud of everybody involved. The music is amazing, but because of COVID, there's a possibility that our little movie, that should be in independent film festivals everywhere, but COVID kind of choked that, South by Southwest and all that kind of stuff. And our Grammy Award-winning soundtrack may get glossed over for this year, and I don't know if it'll ever come back.
Sure.
But I'm going to be proud of it, forever. And I think everybody that put music and acted and worked on the movie should be really proud, because this is a true event that happened, and Skinner fans deserve to see it.
No, I concur, and I haven't watched the whole thing yet. I just found it. It's on and I want the folks out there to know it's on all the streaming services. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on YouTube. You can look around on some other streaming services, and it's there. But I'm showing people the trailer right now, and I got to say, just a stunning job. I mean, even the choice of the film processing, the kind of I know they can do that all now in digital post production, but it looks authentic. It looks like it was shot in the 70s, and the actors are stunning, man. Everyone looks exactly like you guys. They got
there was a great similarity, man. I was in on that
Yeah.
process, and the guy that played Gary Rossington is Priscilla Presley's son, and his name is Navarone Garibaldi, and he was chosen to play Gary Rossington. But the two lead characters, I had to tell this movie from my perspective, or I'd run into more lawsuits from all these idiots. And so I just went from my perspective, and I wanted to make a broader movie from everybody's perspective, but I had to limit it to, the band and the times from my eyes,
right,
and the story. So, but I asked Judy Van Zant to come to the table, and I asked Gary Rossington to come to the table, and I asked their management to come to the table, and rather than even talking to me and about the project, they just immediately sent $1,000 an hour bloodsuckers after
lawyers. Yeah.
that means Cleopatra and myself, and they called me every name in the book, but we prevailed. Right is right.
Yeah.
And but one thing you say about the coloring, here's how that came about. The director, Jared, knew some people there in Hollywood, and they got two of the cameras that was used in the 70s.
Wow.
That had the coloring process.
Right.
That's when you see the whole movie, when you see it from beginning to end, you're going to see that we were able to capture the coloring of that genre and that era,
stunning,
just like they did with Queen, the Queen movie.
Yeah.
And so that you're such a connoisseur, and you're such a meticulous musician and artist that's amazing that you would point that out just from seeing the trailer and saying, wow, the coloring's right. Well, you nailed it, because the coloring is right, because we use cameras. We had two of them. We were able to get two cameras from the 70s. And so the footage, you'll see footage filmed inside a studio. Well, it's an old studio museum that was shut down exactly the way it was in the 60s and 70s, with all the old equipment, the board, the room, everything. And we were able to procure that outside of Los Angeles for some of the interior studio shots. So good eye, Andre.
Well, no, I can't wait. And yes, I am a big film buff. Let's, I'm showing folks the trailer bit by bit as we talk, and all the little details. And one of the details, of course, right after this, the Street Survivors album was just everyone knew about it, and we all heard those songs. But one of the things, and it ties into our show today, one of the things that always jumped out, and it's right there in the movie, you've got that classic shirt on that says vegetarian. Tell us a little bit about that. Just let's pivot a little bit culturally. And I know some folks have questions about that. My friend Bassam, I see he's asking the question. A lot of us are wondering, what was it like being a vegetarian in this Southern rock culture, kind of this barbecue and ribs kind of joints you guys would play in Mississippi and Alabama and Florida? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I can start off by saying there wasn't a lot to eat. Other than, of course, salads and vegetables. And I ate a lot of salads, a lot of vegetables, a lot of avocados, a lot of almonds, and so, a lot of raw stuff.
Yeah.
But when in the band, when I hit the road with the band and we were playing places like New York and Los Angeles, back then there wasn't even a sushi bar.
Right.
available.
Right.
You know, and now there's sushi bars everywhere.
Sure.
And so there were very few vegetarian restaurants and stores, you know, like health food stores. But I knew where they all were. Every city that we hit, I would know where to go to get the stuff that I wanted. Dr. Bronner's soap, you know,
right.
using the Dr. Bronner's, right, and the Nag Champa incense,
sure,
and products that I used. Every city we would hit. Now, when you hit big places like Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and Chicago, that they had you could actually find a vegetarian restaurant, but you had to search.
Yeah,
you know, you had to search
with no phone, and, just yellow pages, right?
Yeah, and it was yellow pages. Of course, there was no cell phones, but and the other thing, you know, you'd go into a place and I would order a sandwich, and you know, they wouldn't have, you know, basically anything that I could eat, and I would just order like, okay, I'll have this right here, and you know, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, and you know, and hold the meat.
Yeah, right.
And they'd look at me like, hold the meat? Why, the meat's the best part, man. What do you hold the meat? You know, and it's like, so, and you know, later on when Ronnie used to kid me, talking about that he called the food that I ate rabbit food.
Right.
Everything that I would order.
Yeah.
And we'd go into a truck stop, you know, and I'd order, you know, they had the veggie plate, and I'd order a salad and the veggie plate, and some of those places. But I had to ask, you know, when I ordered the green beans, is there pork in this? Is there bacon and lard and grease and fat and dead pigs?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the times they'd be, yes, we use this in our making that. And so it was down to, I'd get some corn, you know, and okra, corn and okra.
Oh man!
And they probably didn't have any lard in it or anything. But
sure,
you know, when I was home, my wife Patricia, she was an amazing vegetarian cook, and she would make this delicious like lentil loaf.
Yeah.
You know, with like a mushroom gravy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it had a nice, I guess you could call it a meat texture, and it had a nice dark meat like flavor, but it was all vegetarian. It was all lentil and mushroom and such as that. And so, you know, it wasn't difficult to eat vegetarian. You had to be careful to not eat something that looked like it was okay, but they cook it with pork, you know, and see, a lot of the pork thing with me is the fact that, you know, I was raised a Gentile in the Methodist Church, but I lived in Jerusalem, you know, Israel, in the castle of King David for 3 years. I was going to school over there studying Torah.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly realized that the one thing that I had against pork, you know, of course, a good old pork chop tastes delicious. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you know, Mom would serve up a pork chop, you know, and I go, oh man, you know, the other white meat.
Right. Exactly. I mean,
but
you know, it was, yeah.
But just somewhere along the line, I realized, you know, that I didn't like the way meat made me feel.
Sure. That's yeah.
You know, and so I completely took it out. I was basically a fruitarian for a while.
Okay.
I lived on fruit and very few, you know, spinach salads. A lot of spinach, a lot of kale. You know, that's the stuff. Walnuts. You eat walnuts and a kale salad every day. You know, you're going to be spitting vinegar.
Well, that's great.
So
you're breaking up a little bit, but I think that's a very important point. Walnuts and kale, you're saying. So even back in the day, you were making sure that was part of your diet then, huh?
Yeah, and smoothies and stuff like that. And
Basic.
it's just important to feed the body so you can have the energy, to do what, there's so many people that work so hard in this country, and I would like to see more people eat less food that clogs your arteries.
Yeah.
When I see these advertisements, they have like a quadruple Whopper, and the thing's stacked up like 10 inches tall,
Yeah.
and there's like 4 pieces of meat and bacon,
Yeah.
and a slab of ham and some pork. It's just like, man, you're just asking for heart trouble.
Yeah.
And especially people that smoke cigarettes, which I can't believe people don't understand it at this point, that cigarettes are bad for you. No way around it.
Yeah.
I don't care what rationalization you say. Cigarettes suck. They make your breath stink. They make your house stink. They make your car stink. They make your clothes stink. Oh, what's that other little thing? They kill you.
Oh man.
So it's like, I would like to see the country get their act together. And there's so many, morbidly obese people, and all they would have to do is change a couple of things,
Sure.
and definitely drop the cigarettes, and just eat whole raw foods that feeds the body, and because everything that you get out there, the fast foods, yes, they taste delicious because there's so much salt in them. They just overload 4 and 5 times the salt that needs to be in that stuff. They put it in there because it tastes good, and people go, "Man, that tastes good," and it's death food, man. It really is. And I mean, I understand. I could get hit by a truck tomorrow.
Sure. Absolutely.
When I lived in Jerusalem, Israel, man, just walking the streets, you took your life in your own hands because the city buses and trucks and people driving like crazy people, man. And it's just, you could get X'd.
It's a risk
at any moment.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things folks who are on my show once a week, they know that I bring that up all the time, that look, we could all get hit by a truck. Anything can happen. The point is that eating better, you feel better every day. And that's really why we do it, right? For energy and for feeling better. I mean, and of course.
Yeah. So while you are alive, until we all get hit by that proverbial truck,
yeah,
why not feel good?
Yeah.
In the daytime after people sit down at these gigantic meals. I know they don't feel good. Yeah. I've overeaten to the point, where I'm just like, ugh,
sure.
Yuck, and then, it's just not good for your system, especially with COVID-19, when you have to keep your immune systems, as strong as they can possibly be.
Yeah.
So,
now,
I definitely, now I do eat fish.
Yes. I was going to ask you that before. You said sushi. Yeah. Uh-huh.
My fish of choice, well, because I've had 3 airplane crashes and multiple motorcycle wrecks and car crashes, and I've been beat up and stabbed and shot,
yeah.
I need all the help I can get. So a lot of times to build up my my protein, I'll have like a mild white fish. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Is like monkfish or like halibut.
Sure.
That stuff is so full of protein. It's like eating 4 avocados. It's so good for you.
Sure.
And topped with walnuts.
Omega fatty acids. Yeah. And so pescatarian. Exactly. So pescatarian, right? You had told me that at some point. And now, when you were talking before about when you said, this is not something I want to eat. You're talking about pork and things that your family would prepare. What year was that you gave all that up? Do you remember roughly?
Oh gosh, I don't even know, man.
60s or 70s?
It was the 60s, the late 60s.
Okay, so probably in early
I'd
20s.
say around 60, 67,
Okay.
68.
So like,
And I had joined the Marines.
Yeah. Okay. So around. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying I had joined the Marines, and I was on my way to Vietnam, and I wanted to adjust my diet so that I could live on nothing.
Yeah.
You know, that I could live on plants and berries, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what Vietnam was going to be, man.
And you were there, huh?
And then, no, I didn't. I had my orders,
and
I had my orders in my hand to go to Vietnam.
Right.
I was qualified. I had made sergeant. I was a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare NCO, non-commissioned officer. I worked on jet airplanes. I had taken every school. I wanted to have everything under my belt so that when I got in country, I was ready for anything. And so then I had my orders, and my father was killed in a mid-air plane collision in Albuquerque, New Mexico, hit from above and behind by a B-57 Air Force bomber in Albuquerque. And so my orders were canceled. Everything was canceled. They wanted me to be with my mother. I was a sole surviving son. So, I went to where my mother was, a house that my father had just designed. He was an architect and built for my mother. And I got out of the Marines and moved in with her, and went to Ohio State University. And I had been to Tennessee University, and I was an idiot. And I started taking classes at Ohio State, and I said, you know what? I'm still an idiot. I am not a book guy. I'm too fidgety. I can't sit in class. So what did I do? I joined 6 rock bands and played with one of the best bands I've ever had in my life called Next Voice, and in Columbus there. And we played all over the campus, up and down High Street there in Columbus, at all the music venues. And then I went to Martha's Vineyard with Next Voice, and that was the summer that I learned how to play drums, because I had a bass player named Tim Ingalls.
Okay.
Timmy Ingalls, and we called him Tingles. And a guitar player named Bobby Miles.
Okay.
And our lead singer was Daryl Otis Smith. And my brother-in-law played soprano saxophone, and then we had a guy named John Bursler, a redheaded hippie-looking. He looked like John Lennon, and he always wore the round glasses, and he looked just like John Lennon. I swear. But he plays a guitar like the ring of a bell. He lives in Columbus, Ohio. And we had a band called Next Voice on Martha's Vineyard for 4 months, and we rehearsed and played whatever gigs we could get, and just went crazy on Martha's Vineyard. Then we went into Little Italy, and we had an apartment over a tire store across from a mafia hangout called Mama Rosa's.
Wow. And
it was an Italian restaurant, and nothing but black limousines and dudes named Benny with no neck and blue faces, right?
Hey, Joe.
And so we were over this tire store, and our goal was to work up about 10 songs from this guy named Richard Daniels and go into Dick Charles Studios, 729 East Broadway, New York City, Manhattan.
Wow.
And we did. It was on like the 10th floor. We went up there and recorded all these songs, and it was my first time ever in a studio, and I have 2 of those songs. And and Andre, I can't wait to play them for you sometime.
I'd love
One's
to.
called Flying Hopes.
Okay.
Oh, you'll love it, man. Flying Hopes, and a song called Free Your Soul. And so, I'll tell you all about it sometime. But, John Bursler and I were the only white guys in the band. And I love these guys like brothers and always will. They were some of the most amazing people. Everybody's gone now.
Wow.
Bobby passed away. And and Timmy Ingalls he lived in Boston, and he was in like 10 bands, and Jimmy Lewis, my brother-in-law, passed away out in Arizona, and you know, I'm like the only guy except for Richard Daniels that put the whole thing together.
Street survivor.
And his parents had two. Oh yeah.
You're a street survivor.
His parents had 2 houses on Martha's Vineyard, and see, Martha's Vineyard used to be an island only African American. It was close to Nantucket, right?
Really?
But it was off the coast, and it was a resort for African American men and women that had money, and they built these big, beautiful homes, you know, and they could walk around the island and not have the trouble that they do, you know, other places. This was back in the 20s and 30s.
Sure.
And they built these beautiful homes with giant porches because they had money. And then all of a sudden, white people found out about it, you know, and moved in. And then next thing you know, the Kennedys had the Kennedy compound and everything. And now Martha's Vineyard is like a huge, like, tourist, you know, thing. President Obama loved it.
Sure.
And everything. But that's where they filmed Jaws and everything. Right. And I spent 4 months on that island, and it was magic. And we were a band, The Next Voice, and we were really good. And Tim Ingalls kicked my butt all summer long. And I learned to play drums that summer, man. The summer of '73, and it's like a dream, you know.
Yeah, that what a story. And 25 years old after the Marines, as we talked about the other day, we're going to do this again on we're going to do a thing for makeweirdmusic.com. That's the other thing that I'm involved in, and we're going to do just a music thing. Do you have a book? Do you have a book you're working on, or this is such great stuff? Have you thought of that?
Well, I have one of 2 copies of my book.
Okay.
And my book is called Street Survivor, singular, like the movie Street Survivor.
Yeah.
My book is called Street Survivor, subtitled Keeping the Beat in Leonard Skinner. And I have a copy of the book. It's 25 chapters, 380 pages, 125,000 words, references, and pictures. Circles and arrows on the back for for all the, you know, just like remember the Arlo Guthrie?
Sure, listening to him today.
And the Alice's Restaurant.
Sure.
So I've got pictures in the book with circles and arrows on the back, identifying all the father stabbers and the mother rapers. I think that's what Arlo said. No. You know, I just said a reference to Alice's Restaurant, which younger people probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's really cool, and Arlo was super cool. And but yeah, my book is finished. But here's the deal on the book.
Yeah, how come 2 copies?
I had a publisher. His name was John Sorello, and he was with Backbeat Publications. And my co-writer, Dean Goodman, he's from over in New Zealand, and he lives in L.A. and he worked for Reuters news group.
Yeah,
and I think he did stuff for the Associated Press, AP Wire as well. Anyway, he's followed the Rolling Stones all over the world like 20 times. He's the foremost authority, and Dean is a super guy. And he took all of my words, all of my ramblings, and he put it into context. He gave the book what is called continuity.
Okay.
Right? But every word in the book is my words, but he just put it in order so that it wouldn't confuse the reader, because he's got an amazing eye. So sure. Dean Goodman and I wrote this book. We spent countless hours together. Dean spent all kinds of money at his own expense coming to where I was, us sitting for days and going through and writing the book. Okay, so John Sorello, the CEO of Backbeat Publications, they had a parent company, which was like Simon Schuster or HarperCollins, somebody like that. I don't think it was them, but it was somebody like that, of that stature.
Okay.
And Backbeat was just like a sub-publication. So Judy Van Zandt sued us on the movie So my book, even though we had finished it, John Cirillo made the decision to shelve my book until he found out what happened with the movie. Well, the Court of Appeals ruled 3 judges in our favor against Judy, said that the man has a right to tell his own story. It's called the First Amendment, lady. So anyway, we beat Judy on the movie, and we continued to finish the movie. Well, John Cirillo, his company was bought by a new parent company, and the new parent company said to Backbeat, John Cirillo, they said, hey, do you think Judy will sue us like she did over the movie when Artimus releases his book? Instead of John Cirillo saying the right thing, which was, no, she just got her ass whipped, on the movie, and she's bluffing about suing about his book.
Right.
She has lawyers that live for writing nasty letters, and she's bluffing. That was the right answer. Instead, John Cirillo said, oh, she might, like that. And so the parent company, the new parent company of Backbeat, said, drop Artimus Pyle's book like a hot potato, which they did.
Right.
And, I don't care. It's just a bump in the road. I'll release the book when I'm ready. I'll publish it when I'm ready. I have people backed up that said, hey, let us publish the book. And as soon as I get the movie completely rolled out, which it's a lot to put out a movie, especially under COVID-19,
under COVID,
especially under blood-sucking weasel attorneys, so it's hard enough. So one huge, right, Andre, one huge project at a time.
Okay,
so we're going to get the we're going to get the movie properly rolled out, and then I will publish my book, which is already finished.
Okay.
So, and it'll be good because Backbeat only allowed me 40 pictures in the book, and now I'll put all the damn pictures I want to.
Sure.
I got more than 40 cool pictures, and I'll put them all in the book, and do what I want to, and it's their loss. I delivered to them on time and under budget a really good real book.
Oh, I'm sure.
And John Cirillo passed on it, man, folded like a lawn chair.
That's
so. There's the story on my book.
Well, you're a storyteller, and again, we were trying to figure it out, and it's something like 20 years I've known you, and every time we hang out, I hear a bunch of more stories, and we could just focus on any area. I want to say a couple of things, jumping back to the vegetarian diet, which of course I got some questions people are asking also, but one of the things I love that you were very clear early on that it's about getting the fresh fruits, the vegetables, the salad, getting the nuts and seeds, getting these real good sources of protein. And as you said, you also pescatarian. You also have some fish sometimes. But back then, I'm glad that you knew. Look, I better be eating almonds. I better be eating spinach and kale. And I want to say to people, when there's this myth that vegetarians are weak and we don't have strength and endurance, you better believe. You go watch a video of Leonard Skinner. You guys would do these shows, talk about Zappa. You guys would play for hours, and I dare anyone to play that. You get 22-minute versions of Freebird with the drum stuff happening at the end. That's some endurance, right? I mean,
I still do it.
Yeah,
I still do it, man. Yeah, I can still do that and play a whole show and then end with Freebird. No, it did add to. And another thing that I like to take was ginseng, the Panax Korean ginseng,
sure,
in the little glass vials.
Yeah.
And remember, you have to take a file and pop off the little thin glass top of those glass vials.
Yeah.
Right, and then pour it into orange juice or just shoot it like a shot. That was my ginseng of choice.
Sure.
Because it's a blood cleanser. It gave you energy without taking you above the line. And then, people that take speed, they go speedy for a minute and they go above the line of normal, but they go back below the line of normal, trying to come out of taking speed. So ginseng was all natural, 100% legal, 100% natural, and I used to carry the boxes of those Pan-X Korean ginsengs. And in the movie, you're going to see that when the federal authorities went through our plane wreckage, they found my ginseng, and they thought that I was smuggling heroin.
Wow. That's. I want to jump back to the movie in a minute. I want to ask on the food side, tell us a little bit of some of your favorite cuisines, like because you lived in Israel for a while, where there's wonderful Mediterranean food. What's your favorite? Do you like Thai food, Mexican, Italian? What do you like when you go for?
Well,
these days you have every
falafel,
choice.
Man.
Falafel.
When I lived in Jerusalem, Israel, the falafel, which is completely vegetarian.
Sure.
You know, and and with the pickles and all the diced cucumbers and tomato, and then the harif, which is like a Mideastern hot sauce.
Yeah.
The harif. You have to say it with the you got harif, and I would put it, you know, on my falafel, and man, you know, the tahina, that stuff. There's nothing better for you.
Yeah.
You know, and on pita, with the olive oil and olives, you know, eat the black olives and the green olives. They're just so good.
Delicious.
For your system, and of course apples and carrots and every kind of berry that you can eat. You know, blueberries are like they're like a wonder food, and then beet juice. Beet juice is a monster.
Yeah, I know you love that. Yeah,
stuff is really good for you. So, you know, my wish is for everyone in the world to have, and what you were describing a while ago. You're talking about living food.
Yeah,
food that still hasn't had the life cooked out of it and the nutrition cooked out of it.
Crucial.
Because a lot of people would complain about hospital food years ago, because the hospital food, they would cook all the vegetables and stuff, and they would cook the nutrition out of it.
Oh,
you know, and then they just salt it.
Yeah,
colorless, and then hospitals started realizing that nutrition is as much a part of health as anything else.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's
and of course, you know.
Well, my other half, Robin, who is also a dear friend of yours, she.
I love Robin.
Oh, she's the best. She was reminding me the other day. She's probably listening, and I said, yeah, Artimus is, and she goes, oh my God. And we were kind of talking about when I met you, and she used to remember when she met you at one of the Warren Haynes Christmas jams. And she said, I forgot this part. She said, yeah, we were downstairs, we were going backstage, and she says she looks over, and there's this guy with a great big cowboy hat making a juice in the juicer. Because remember that? They had a juicer backstage, and there you are with lemons and beets and ginger, and everyone is drinking beers and smoking, and you're sitting there going, hey, let's make a juice, man. Backstage at the rock concert.
And it was good, too. I think I shared it with some people.
Yes, you made one for her. You made one for her, and we shared. So that's a special, what a memory. But no, what I love, and I love living in the South these 13 years, because you grow up in the North, you kind of have a bad attitude. And you've been one of the many people that I've gotten to know where you realize, man, Southern people, you know, you have the good and the bad, just like everywhere in this planet Earth. But Americans need to realize that when you meet, you and I know so many folks like you and like me down here that are so open-minded and progressive and worldly, and they're into art, and they've traveled the world. And, you know, the South gets a bad rap, man. And I'm so happy that one of the first exposures I had to the South, like anyone growing up in listening to classic rock, was something like Freebird and What's Your Name, Little Girl? You know, that song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you're 14, because that song tells a story, and you're going, oh my God, these guys go town to town, and all these girls come around. You know, it's really when you're a teenager.
Well, hey, after you see the movie, man, I want you since you said and all the girls come around, after you see the movie, which is not for children, by the way.
No.
After you see the movie, I want you to call me, and and say hey, because we traveled around, but look at Ronnie Van Zant. He was the songwriter of Leonard Skinner. He was
Sure.
the main guy.
Yeah.
And I get this question all the time about whether Ronnie was a racist or not. And the answer to that is absolutely not. Ronnie would judge you not on, the color of your skin, or not where you're from, or how well you speak English.
Yeah.
Ronnie would judge a person whether they were a good person or not.
Yeah.
And that's the way he was, and that's the way I am. And so I tell people that all the time.
Sure.
Why would he wear Jimi Hendrix T-shirts? Why would he listen to Stevie Wonder?
Sure.
Why would he write a song called The Ballad of Curtis Lowe?
Sure.
Which the words are, Curtis Lowe was a black man with white curly hair, and he was the greatest picker the world had ever seen.
Yeah.
Why would he say things like that if Ronnie, so I knew Ronnie. I lived with Ronnie all over this planet.
Absolutely. No, you told me that.
I stayed with him on the bus. We shared a compartment on one of our tour buses. And I spent more time with Ronnie than anybody in his family the man's last 3 years of his life. And I can say that Ronnie Van Zant loved people for who they were, and that includes everybody, whether it's African-American, Mexican-American, gay American, Irish American, I love all people. I love all people, man. And if you're good, you're good. Yeah. And yes, you're right. The South is an incredible place to live.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of, good, progressive, strong, thinking down here.
Yeah.
And you got the good and the bad wherever you go. But
wherever you go, exactly.
I love North Carolina, and I love where I live. I live in Burt County, and I have a son in college up at Boone, Appalachian State in Boone. River's up there. He's 21 now, and he's doing great. And he's only like an hour away. And if I get up on a mountain around here, I can actually see Grandfather Mountain and Table Rock and all that stuff. It's the view is right there. And then, of course, the beautiful Linville Gorge, man. And you go up to Boone and Blowing Rock by 181, 221, 321. Every single way going up the mountain to Grandfather Mountain is like it's like out of a movie. It's just beautiful, scenically beautiful. And so, I live close to Lake James.
Okay.
And a friend of mine's got a pontoon boat out there. And Lake James, it couldn't be any more beautiful. The water's clean, mountain views. You got to come down and bring Robin. And when this COVID thing and you guys feel safe, come down, man. We'll go out on the pontoon boat on the lake.
I love it. No,
and it's just and just hang out.
We'll take you.
I hope you don't mind. I hope you're not offended if I smoke weed.
Oh no! There won't be any complaints. At least one of us still smokes weed. But I want to thanks for saying that. And I know for some people they're going like, wow, this is some cultural stuff, man, that I didn't realize about Skinner. And I want to add to that and say, the ballast of Curtis Lowe. Yeah, I mean, and let's not forget the first 4 or 5 albums. Their dear friend Al Cooper, a Jewish man from New York City, and he talks about how open-minded those guys were. So there's a lot of I think maybe the feud with Neil Young with Sweet Home Alabama and stuff. People kind of didn't really understand some of the sarcasm and some of the, but the one more thing I want to say though, and I give credit to Skinner.
No, Ronnie loved Neil Young, man.
Yeah, of course.
He was wearing a Neil Young T-shirt on the last album, Street Survivors.
Yeah.
He's wearing a Neil Young T-shirt.
That's right.
Neil and Ronnie were going to get together and write. They were going to write the answer to Southern Man meets Sweet Home Alabama meets what?
Wow,
Neil and Ronnie were going to write that third song. What would that song have been like? So definitely, man. And I mean, look at how great guitar players were in that band. The great Ed King, the great Gary Rossington, the great Alan Collins, the great Steve Gaines. Man, how can you go wrong? And then Billy Powell. This
Yeah.
guy was trained classically. I've sat for hours listening to Billy play Beethoven and Mozart, and he's made me cry. And
Yeah.
yet Billy was one of the most banging, hot, monster, boogie woogie keyboard players that ever
Piano.
lived.
Sure.
Nobody played like Billy Powell. Nobody since.
No, it's stunning. I wanted to just bookend that little area, though. We're talking about that. I really salute the other guys in Skinner a few years ago, and we talked about this too. They decided to take the rebel flag off of all their merch, and they realized. And I saw an interview with one of the guys, and they said, "Look, we grew up with it. It's on in the Dukes of Hazzard. We all thought." And they said, it was about 4 years ago, right? They said, you know what? Now we realize when we really look at the history of this flag, sure, it's part of heritage, but it sends a message, and they took it off their merch, which I really applaud them.
It does, and I think you just encapsulated it. It sends a message. Now, whether what's your perspective is what the message means. I know what it means to me. And everything. It does send a message, and I was so proud of Gary. That was Gary that you heard, and he was voicing that. There was a Showtime documentary where Gary said that, and he says now we realize that it sends a message, and we use the American flag, which I think was a really good move because I mean think about it, Andre. My drums sat directly in front of the largest Confederate flag in the world.
Sure.
We had one made. It cost $25,000 back in 1970 money to have this gigantic Confederate flag. And I remember we were in London and we had the flag with us. We had carried it over there and all of our equipment. And nowadays you just rent equipment. It's crazy,
sure.
not shipping all this heavy stuff all over. But we had our flag, and after the show, the road crew accidentally dropped the flag on the ground. They dropped it, and it all came down, and it was laying on the floor. And Ronnie came out and saw it, and he said, "Burn it."
Wow.
And our road manager was in tears. He said, "Ronnie, we just had this thing made. It was $25,000, Ronnie." And Ronnie just said, "Burn it." It touched the ground. And that's the way he felt about any flag that meant something to somebody, right or wrong. Just like he says about, in Birmingham, they loved the governor. Boo, boo, boo. That was George Wallace. He didn't believe in what George Wallace believed, but he believed in the fact that George Wallace stood up for what he believed.
Sure.
Whether he was right or wrong, and Ronnie thought he was wrong. That's why he said "boo, boo, boo" in Sweet Home Alabama. And think about it: before George Wallace, after he was shot and in the wheelchair, he himself admitted that he was wrong about his racist views. He admitted that, and I thought, I thought that was a hell of a thing for him to say. That's the way I was raised, and all people should love all people. Love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor.
That's it. And we all have the capacity to change and learn. And we have this they call it cancel culture today, where no one's given a chance. But we all make mistakes. We all evolve. We all learn. I remember too when we did the Zappa show. Do you remember this? We spent probably 45 minutes or something, a half hour, so we could squeeze the lick from Sweet Home Alabama into a Zappa song. Remember that? We were doing Crew Slut, and right when Zappa goes, he says, "Well, you've been to Alabama, girl, and Georgia too." We cut it, so as soon as we said Alabama, "Well, we've been to Alabama." Remember that? And that was tough.
Yeah, I do.
That was like.
It reminded me of when Ronnie was watching Frank play at Maple Leaf Gardens, man. I kind of harkened back to that moment, thinking, now he would think that's hilarious. He would love that.
Yeah. No, because it was kind of hard to do that because it was two completely different types of beats, different tempos. But we said, you know what? Just to kill the audience on this, and we did it. But so of
Oh,
course.
and don't forget the other line. All the boys in the crew are waiting on you. She's the crew slut.
No, Zappa's his politically incorrect reporting from the road. So speaking of the road, of course, you're off the road. We're all off the road. And I want people to know, I put it up on the screen. People should check out artemispyleband.com, right? Is that the best place to stay in touch and get on the email list and all that?
Well, I've never touched a computer, but my band, all those guys are businessmen, successful, and they set up a website for the band, and I think it is artemispyleband.com.
Yeah.
And to add to that, I just like to, everybody knows that I don't go to the website. I don't do social media.
Right.
I'm not on Twitter. I don't do any kind of facelifts or face elbow or anything. But the thing is, we just went to Nashville. Now, about a month ago, we played in Florida. It was a sold-out gig, but it was half capacity, and it was the Largo, Florida Performing Arts Center. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility down there, and it felt good to play. Like I say, half capacity, but it was their first live gig in 6 months, and it was, we had done a few gigs, but just very few. So what we decided to do, we normally wouldn't do this, but we went to Nashville and did a 7-camera video shoot.
Sure.
And our agency is the Bob Kincaid Agency. And at his facilities, they have a really nice state-of-the-art stage, lights, sound, video capability. It's Nashville, so they have it set up for doing the right thing. And we went in there and did a 7-camera shoot
live,
and we did our set, including our brand new song, Street Survivor, from the movie soundtrack, that I think is one of the strongest Southern rock songs. And I'm proud to say that Jerry Lida and Scott Rains and Warren Haynes penned that little ditty. And then the band, we arranged it and worked on it for like 18 hours straight, man, to get it ready for the movie. And I'm so proud of that song. So, we added that song to the Skinnerd set that we do, and we're having it edited to make it look good, bouncing around and all the different shots that they've got. All the cameras were running, and they're going to like splice it and make it look good.
That's great.
And we are going, there was like a live stream available for streaming, and we're going to sell that. I think we're going to make it, possible for people to, if they want that in their catalog, or at least download it and look at it for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we do the whole set, and then we do a breakdown in the middle where Jerry Lida and Scott Rains and Brad actually sing Tuesday's Gone almost a cappella. It's only Scott Rains' 6-string accompaniment, but man, their vocals, those guys grew up together, and it's not an accident that their vocals, Scott Rains is from Alabama, and Brad's from Georgia. He's a Bulldog, and then Jerry was born and raised in Asheville, and they were friends for their whole lives. They were in bands together, and they came from the love of Lynyrd Skynyrd music. They love it as much as I do. They're like 55. I'm 72. So their vocal harmonies were absolutely beautiful on Tuesday's Gone in our 7-camera shoot. And also, Scott Rains sings the lead vocal on Street Survivor, the title track from the movie. And I swear, his vocal and the guys' backup harmony vocals are so Southern rock, and their guitar solos and dueling kind of guitar harmonies. It's amazing. As soon as you can, try to see the movie and then download the song Street Survivor and listen to it stand alone, and tell me what you think, man.
Oh, absolutely.
I channeled John Bonham. Man,
oh man!
I told the guy, I said, I want to sound like John Bonham, and I wrote a drum part with the help of the rest of the band members, there was like 5 people that helped me put that drum part together, and I said, if you guys can think it, I can execute it. So, they came up with some really cool stuff, and I put it all into Street Survivor. And man, if I do say so myself, John Bonham would be proud. And the song kicks ass. So just on that note, I just wanted to leave you with that. And
yeah, I can't wait to hear it. And yes, we have the movie queued up in our Amazon. We're going to watch it in the next day or so. No, man, it's so special to catch up with you. And I love that I know a few people like yourself who say, you know what? I'm an artist. I don't have time for it. I love that you don't even have Zoom, that we're doing this on a phone. I love that you don't have any of this junk, Facebook, Twitter, none of it. I do. I applaud that, because there's a certain sanity to staying away from this nonsense. But like as you said, your bandmates are on top of it, and I'm putting it up on the screen for people. They can go to artemispyleband.com. You can find Artimus Pyle Band. Yeah, you can find Artimus Pyle Band on Instagram, and they have the videos up there. They got the video of you in the tractor trailer the other day, telling us to be safe. So it's cool.
Oh yeah,
all these great.
I was
pictures.
I'm sitting in the middle of 50 acres, and we take the hay off this land, and I get to help.
Sure. There's some great stuff. There's the picture of you with Dolly, your future wife Dolly, at the Ryman, and and all that. So people are going to watch it. I'm going to see if there's a couple questions. And I know you got to go soon, but someone, let's say my buddy Frank is asking again. So you don't do any of this kind of computer stuff, but I know you listen to the radio, and you still go out and play concerts. Do you think terrestrial radio, regular radio, FM radio, do you think that's still important to a song being successful? How much do you do like radio interviews and things like that? Tell us about how important radio is, as you've grown up with it.
Well, I think it's still very important, and I did a lot of radio interviews because of the movie. There was a lot all over the country, and I've gotten all kinds of fan mail because my address is basically public knowledge. Yeah. And right after the movie dropped, June the 30th, I started receiving stuff from all over the world. I got a package from Russia, and it's somebody that wants me to sign some photos, and then they send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I put it back in. I haven't gotten around to all of it, but I plan on answering every piece of mail that has been sent to me. And there was a surge because of the movie coming out.
Sure.
And one of these days when they least expect it, they'll get their autograph, their signed photo back, or their album or something. I got stuff from Russia. I got stuff from Sweden, all over Europe, Japan, and of course everywhere in America.
Beautiful.
That has been sent to me. And so, people, I knew that people wanted to know what happened that night to us, that plane crash, that fateful night. And the story needed to be told. And, it had been held up for years because certain parties didn't want it to be told.
Yeah,
they didn't think it was important.
Sure.
And I thought it was very important as a member of that band and a person that was in that plane crash. I thought the world should know what we went through. And it was not easy. And it is a tragedy. And it's very intense. That when we're crashing the plane, be prepared. It's extremely intense, and so there are a few humorous moments in the movie, and I think in the first 10 minutes I smoked 20 joints, and there's a lot of there's a lot of nudity and everything, but that's just the way it was in the 60s and the 70s.
Well, that
was the norm. So the movie needed to be told. We fought hard to get it. And the young men and women that portrayed us in the movie, they put their hearts and souls into those roles because they didn't care about these lawsuits that Judy Van Zandt was bringing against us.
Right.
They didn't care about these blood-sucking weasel attorneys making threats and lying. They were portraying people that really lived in history, and so they wanted their roles to be. They'd call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, Los Angeles time, and East Coast time, saying what would Leon say if this happened? What would Alan? What would Ronnie say? And I would talk with them until they got an answer.
Wow.
And
okay. And
so I spent
blanks.
a lot of time with them, and so I'm really proud of everybody. And like I say, Andre, enough credit cannot be given to Cleopatra Records and Films.
Sure.
They're a little mom and pop. I've been to the offices. They got a great place there in Los Angeles, over on the other side of the Ventura Highway, out of LA there, the Sunset area. And they've got nice offices. They're mom and pop. In other words, it's not like a MCA Records or anything, but they do business all over the world. They did business with Charlie Daniels.
Cleopatra. Major.
So enough credit cannot be given to them for hanging in there against all odds when Judy was trying to shut this movie down, because she was greedy and selfish and just being awful, just being awful, power hungry.
That's a shame. I'm so happy that it's the story's being told. And again, it's graphic. I mean, I've shown people the trailer here on our chat, and it's right there. I want to jump for a second. I didn't know, in all the times we've spoken about, I didn't know my condolences. I know it's a very long time, but you never forget the loss of your dad. I lost mine a year ago, but your dad, it was a plane accident, huh? Your dad, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, a sergeant in the Marines, and I had been accepted to Officers Candidate School. I had gone before a board of colonels and majors and captains, and they wanted me to go back to college and get another year of college, and then go to Quantico, Virginia, for OCS for the Marines. And then I was going to get my captain's bars and then become a pilot. That was the dream. And my dad had sort of taken flight lessons at the same time I did. He had just soloed. I was about to solo, and then Dad was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and was hit by a B-57 Weather Recon Air Force bomber, and he was killed instantly. Wow. He didn't see it coming. He was 49 years old. He didn't know what was happening, and that kind of kept me from going crazy because Dad did not suffer. He never suffered.
Sure.
He just one minute he was looking at property he was going to build beautiful homes on, and flying an airplane, two things that he loved. The next second, he was gone and fallen 1,200 feet into a muddy mesa in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the man with him, 36,000 hours of flying time, Robert Stubblefield, he was killed as well. He was an aviation pioneer of the Southwest. He swept out hangars at age 13 for flight lessons. That was the man that was with my father. So that's why we won the lawsuit against the government, against the Air Force and the FAA, is because nobody that knew Robert Stubblefield from the Federal Aviation Administration, they knew he was not involved in a mid-air plane collision, and it was his fault. So it was proven that it was the Air Force's fault, and so we won that case.
Well, I tell you, man, you got his 9 lives, bro, because we've talked about this many times too, how bulletproof you are, and I hope you stay that way. But the motorcycle accidents, you've been shot, you've been stabbed. Here's something people don't know that you and I have laughed about because you got a great sense of humor. You've been in 3 aircraft accidents, haven't you? You had the helicopter and the crop plane. Can you tell people about that? 3 aircraft accidents, folks.
My first plane crash was with my uncle and Sammy J. Williams, and Sammy and I were coming in, and he had a tail dragger Cessna 140. It was all aluminum and no paint, and as a tail dragger. And we would land where all of the crop dusters for all the farm country where I lived in Tennessee. There was a bunch of crop dusters, and that's where Sammy he had 3 airplanes. And we were coming in over the trees and the telephone pole wires, and a crosswind hit us, and we turned literally sideways. And at the last second, Sammy got it turned just enough that we didn't land sideways. But we took off one of the landing gear. It bent the wing and bent the prop. And then in the Marine Corps, I was on a search and rescue mission for a downed pilot. And I was in a helicopter with about 20 other Marines, and they were going to drop us on a beach so we could go into the bush and try to find these, the navigator and the pilot. And it was a F-4 Phantom, in which it has 2 seats, and they were both missing. So we were starting to land, and something happened to the engine of the chopper, and it kind of dumped us. The whole back end fell down, and we were still about 100 feet in the air, and it kind of dumped us down, and a bunch of us fell out. I think all of us were just sprinkled into the swamp before we had a chance to hit the beach. And the engine was coughing and sputtering. And at the last second, the pilot, after we'd been dumped out and fell a pretty good ways, into 6 foot of water. You know, we had full fuel packs and our weapons, and we were weighted down. One guy was having trouble, keeping his head above water, and we just, a couple of us Marines got around him, and we held him up till we got to the beach. But at the last second, the pilot was able to kick it over to the beach, and the whole thing slammed down on the beach and broke it. It broke the fuselage, and it was unflyable. They had to come in with a barge. They had to crane it and barge it out of there because that thing never would fly again.
And
but
where
the
was
pilot survived it.
Oh, sorry.
That was in North Carolina.
In North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's incredible, man. So no, you and I have joked around about that, and I've said, well, either you don't ever want to fly with Artimus, or you should, because he's good luck. Right?
What are the odds I'm going to have a fourth airplane crash?
I know, but you're very good luck, my friend. You've been it's been wonderful to know you. Well, I know you got to go. Let's wrap up with and we'll do this again. We'll do one with when we work out some technology, and we'll get your son Marshall involved, because again, folks, I love it. This man is an analog man. He plays drums. He listens to records and CDs, which, okay, that's probably the only digital thing in your life is a CD. But this man, this man makes beet juice and spinach juice, and he tends his farm, and he's, just has these beautiful kids, and he plays music. They all play music. He's an analog man, but we're going to get him on screen next time with his son's help. His son's a wonderful artist, and we can go for hours, man. I want to talk a little bit about what you had to eat today. What did you have today? Meatless Monday. What did you eat so far?
Oh, I had a falafel. Marshall brought me a falafel from that place up in Asheville.
Oh, Gypsy Queen, maybe?
I'm not sure where it is, but it was in a falafel wrap.
Nice.
And they had the red hot sauce, the harif, and it had all kinds of veggies in it, and the falafel, and a nice little sauce, and some tahini, and everything. And my dinner last night was an avocado. I cut it in half and sprinkled about 10 walnuts on it, and then put some Italian dressing that it's kind of a vinegar and oil, but
Sure.
it also has all the herbs and spices.
Yeah.
So I just kind of drizzled that over the avocado, and it was delicious.
Man. No, that's what I've always loved. That when we talk about food, you're very whole foods, and I mean that in the old school Jethro Kloss kind of a way, like real food, plants from the earth. It's such a deep respect. So we got a lot of people.
And Marshall fixes us a lot of rice.
Oh,
Tons of rice.
nice.
Rice and beans.
Nice.
Rice and beans. It's good for you. And
Basic.
Marshall's a good cook, and he cooks us rice and beans, and he'll do like a vegetable medley. We get around here. We got a lot of gardens, and people give us stuff, and we try to put it. You know, when somebody comes and gives us some cucumbers or some tomatoes and squash or whatever they give us, potatoes, we try to put it into the menu that night, or at least the next night.
That's great, man.
But I just want to thank you and Robin and of course all of your listeners for letting me ramble on. I'll tell you where I'm sitting right now. I'm in the middle of a 50-acre field behind my house.
Okay.
And the grass, we cut the hay, and it's beautiful green grass, about a foot tall. And I'm looking at nothing but trees. The leaves are changing, and it's a huge field. And that's where I've been sitting the whole time. I'll send you a picture, Andre.
I love it.
And
please.
I'm sitting, but thank your listeners for putting up with my rambling. And Andre, you can call me anytime, brother.
Oh, I know, bro. And likewise. And no, people, I just want to say people have been so excited and saying some beautiful memories. And I'll share some of those with you. And just saying, you know, they're fascinated to learn this whole other side about you. And I hope they go and watch the movie. Just go to Amazon. It's on YouTube. Please watch this movie, folks. And I played the trailer. I'm going to let that play out as we say goodbye. Here's a question from Shirley Beckwith. She says, Artimus signed my birth certificate at Billy Wilson's Aging Still in Norwich, Connecticut. Do you remember that? That's going back a bit. Do you remember signing someone's birth certificate? That's got to be unique. Is that
You know what? I do remember, because you don't sign many birth certificates.
No.
And and that was a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
She can't remember, but she thinks it's in the 80s. Some place called Billy Wilson's Aging Still in Norwich, Connecticut. But
okay, that one, I know we were up in Connecticut a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Because our schedule, we were playing every weekend. Our agency was, we were playing these beautiful old theaters and playing some really cool outdoor venues and nice places.
Sure.
And everything, and I know we were in Connecticut, and I was thinking it was a couple of years ago. But if she's talking about the '80s, just tell her I'm sure if it's my signature on a birth certificate, then I was there.
You were there. No, she remembers. But yeah, that was a stretch. But I told her, here, I'll ask the questions. But no, people are just happy to hear from you, and I love that they've learned a whole other side about you. And your travels, and we're gonna bring you back. We'll do this again, and thanks so much for your time, bro.
Hey, Andre, anytime for you and everybody. Be safe, eat well, and sleep well.
Thank you, Artimus. We'll talk soon, bro.
Thanks, Andre. I'll send you that picture.
Please. And there we have it, folks. Oh my God, right? That's one of the more epic interviews we've had on here. First one I've done that's a phone call, so I had to work with the technology there. But what a fascinating man, right? What a story. And boy, I tell you, folks, I'm glad we got a lot about his diet and why he went vegetarian and kind of foods that he loves, because that's the glue that holds this show together, our kind of journey on all that plant-based. But I really love, and I told you folks that we would talk a lot about his music, and I also told you last week, some of you remember, I promised you, I said this man has more stories. I mean, right? You just throw him a bone, as it were. Throw him a celery stalk, and off he goes. It's brilliant, and I'm telling you, we scratched the surface. We only had a couple hours. I didn't want to have the poor guy sitting on the phone in a beautiful field, just for hours and hours. But we'll do this again. As I said, I'm associated with a wonderful website called MakeWeirdMusic.com, and we just put a video up, interview that I did with Steve Hunter. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we're going to have one with Artimus once we work out a way to get him on screen. and it's so charming again that he is thoroughly modern in that he tours around the world and he still plays music, still going into studios, still playing all these great places, but he just doesn't want to. And there's something to that, right? He's one of the few guys on the tour bus that's not going, like that. I mean, we're all victims of it. I have some techniques. I try to, uh, I'm very happy that my phone told me that I was 13 hours less on my phone last week. But we all got to try to reduce that screen time. And I'm extra inspired with my brother Artimus here because, yeah, get outdoors, play an instrument, read a book, all of those things I do, but I'm going to try to do them even more. And so what a wonderful visit with him. Okay, so keep hitting me with a couple questions. Let's finish up here. I really appreciate you folks. This is it really. Some of you are here every week, and it really means the world to me. I look forward to this in these crazy times. I look forward to uh, to arriving on Monday at 3 p.m. and hanging out with y'all. And I look forward to these wonderful guests and people who've shared their time with me. We've had chefs, we've had, a couple restaurant owners, and we've had international people, right? We had Pink from Paraguay, right? The vegan chef. We had the other vegan chef, Hakeem from Nigeria. We've got people coming up from Israel and England and all around the place. So we're going to keep jumping around, and I really appreciate you being part of it because it's fun and the questions are always great. So let's see if you got some questions to close out with. But finishing up though on just how what an impact that man has made after Stairway to Heaven, right? Their song was the other. That was the other like long, like okay, pack the bong. Here's Stairway to Heaven, or um, Freebird. I mean, both songs have achieved kind of cliche status, right? Where they've just been on so many times. So you flip the channel sometimes because back then because maybe you heard it twice that week or something. But really, whether you like the song or not, to just honor how much that music penetrated classic rock culture, and a host of songs, Give Me Three Steps and, you know, uh, Sweet Home Alabama we talked about before, and Saturday Night Special, which is not a pro-gun song. And another interesting song to hear these Southerners, Saturday night ain't that special, whatever the lyrics are, it kind of talks about the dark side of the gun culture. So very interesting band. Once you peel away some of the imagery, kind of okay, it's these scary Southern dudes with beards and long hair, and yeah, there's a rebel flag. It's interesting as you go deeper, and kind of say, oh wow, these are intelligent men saying some, men and women in the band saying some very interesting stuff. Food for thought. And that's a window into it right there, Artimus. So do check out artemispyleband.com. Some great videos. The band is really killing. And as he said, they just played a couple weeks ago a special streaming show, and they tour all the time. So he's very much vibrant and active at 72. Really bulletproof, man. 3 aircraft crashes survived. Motorcycle accidents, shot, stabbed, broke his leg, broke his arm. I mean, in the movie, you'll see, and he tells the story when he crawls out of the wreckage. A few people survived, obviously, but he went trying to get help, and it's very, very sad story, which is 43-year anniversary tomorrow. But stay in touch with Artimus. Go check out what he's doing. So let's see if you've got some other questions and points. Oh, great. Yes, Shirley, take a picture and send it to me. Awesome. I'll send it right to him. Yeah, send me a DM. And Artimus that's the one thing he does have that's digital. Actually, he's got this cell phone. And let's see. I think he was on his son's phone actually, because he doesn't even have one. He puts So here's a couple pictures he just sent me. So that's his drum set when they did that webcast the other day. But he just sent me, this is where Artimus was as you folks were sharing some time with him. He was sitting right there. What an idyllic under the North Carolina skies where we are. And it's beautiful day here today. I think it's in the high 60s, 73, my phone says to me. So I'm going to get outside after all this and catch a little sunshine. All right, so let's I always love to finish up with, hey, what did you have for lunch? And we had a few people that said some delicious stuff before. I love what Artemis had, right? He told us his lunch. And Wes Taggart, yeah, sorry, I didn't get to that question, but I think I did hear that ELP used the same uh, shipping company, plane company. And Antoine Shashuk, what's up, buddy? Didn't get to your question specifically, but I noticed that someone else answered it, and that, yes, there's that's addressed in the movie. So I figured, yeah, I'll just point you to the movie there. So yes, indeed, RB Kratz, Tal Wilkenfeld is awesome. And thank you, Christopher Lowry. There's some links there. People can see Artemis at the show that we did. Hey, Kate Grady, how are you? If you're still here. So yeah, let's talk food as we close out, folks. Oh, I didn't see that question, but Sam, what's your favorite color? Do you dig the brothers? Yeah, lyrics. You always have the lyrics nailed down. Well, we know his answer there. He did get into that, and his diverse worldly view. Brain Dead Casey, what's up? Thank you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the interview. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you all. Thanks, Sharon. Raymond, you're right. It's time for a vegan cocktail, which actually most cocktails are vegan, right? I mean, what once in a while there's a milk stout or something that I have to ask, the bartender. Even Bailey's. Did you know Bailey's Irish Cream has a vegan version now? That, yes, they've got an almond milk Bailey's Irish Cream. Never had it. I was never a fan of Bailey's Irish Cream. Nothing against it, just never tried it. But yeah, they did an almond version. So, but most cocktails, of course, are plant based, which is pretty awesome. I think I might join you in a cocktail. Sharon, you're right. Stairway to Freebird. I'm sure someone has done that mashup. I have heard of Artimus Pyle Driver. Yes, that's great. Yeah, see you, Sharon. See you, all of you that have to go. Oh, look at that. You got good luck. Yes, he is a good luck charm. So, yeah, tell me what you had for lunch. I had for lunch, again, I'm so lucky. I have an incredible chef. Maybe one day she'll agree to be on the show. Folks, what a delicious lunch this was. Green beans, tempeh, fresh green beans. We have a CSA, local organic veggies. We just get a box delivered once a week. It's $30, and who knows what's in it? It might be cabbage and apples and hot peppers. Next week it might be fresh garlic, sweet potatoes, a pumpkin, and a head of lettuce and 2 heads of kale. The next week it might be whatever, right? Depends as the season changes. Look around for CSAs where you are. I think that stands for community supported agriculture. I'm not sure what it means, but they're very common. I was involved in a couple of them up in New Jersey, and now in North Carolina. So, and I've heard about them all around the place. So see if there's one near you. And many of them have these programs where they drop the produce off on your front porch, and it's for a flat rate. You get X amount of pounds of produce. So we do that, and it's really great because oh great, some scallions, some artichokes. We had interesting things like that appear, and so you get creative. So here's what we had today. Look at that, huh? Delicious fresh green beans with a little olive oil steamed, and then a little tempeh, a tempeh with some drizzle of tahini and scallions. There's a hot pepper on the side grown in our garden. You can see a little chili pepper. And then that was really awesome. The stuff on the bottom, I thought it was mushrooms. It was this delicious texture with sesame seeds on it. And I thought, what? I'm eating them. I'm thinking, are these mushrooms? Robin says, no, those are turnips. Wow. So these beautiful fresh turnips. I love turnips. I always forget about them. But if you've never had turnips, folks, don't snooze on turnips. They're just not often presented, but they're in the supermarket all the time. Try some turnips. Bake them like a potato. Put them in a curry. Wow. Turnips are they just have a different, very satisfying and unique flavor. So Braindead Casey had mozzarella and spinach pizza. Okay, yeah. Can't go wrong with some pizza, man. I mean, and that's a nice meatless pizza pie. What else do we have here? Looking at your Shirley, yes, it was delicious. Anyone else? What did you have today? Brandon Kish says, I'm from Ireland. I can't walk down the street without kicking a turnip. Yeah. Dehydrated. But yeah, who said that? Shirley? Someone said, yeah, Shirley said vegan Bailey's. Yeah. It's Bailey's Almond. That's what they call it. Bailey's Almond. And it's it's their liqueur just made with almond milk. I mean, because that's the thing. You can do anything. Milk is just a texture, right? It's a fluid, kind of a significant amount of fat. There's a certain chemical properties of it that you can get from nut milks, cashew milks, almond milk, soy milk. And the funny thing is, rice milk, and the funny thing is, you go to different cultures. In a lot of Asian cultures, they've used rice for centuries to produce a milk-like substance. If you notice, in a lot of Asian cuisines, there is no cheese or milk, right? Think about it. If you go to a Thai restaurant, there's no cream, there's no milk, there's no cheese. Chinese food, think about it. 10 pages of stuff. There's no cream sauce. There's no, melted cheese. There's no, there's just no cheese in those cultures. Japanese food. I'm sure you've all eaten the Japanese restaurant. Huge menu, nothing at all. Now, of course, excuse me, in the modern era, some of these cultures have integrated some milk. Of course, there's ice cream on the menu for dessert, or you might have this or that. But you know what I'm saying. The real main part of the menu in Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, all of these areas of the world, it's not till you get to Western Europe. Very interesting. Western Asia, sorry, where you have, west of the ones I just said, west of Indonesia, Thailand, Japan. You travel west and you get in India, where the cow, very sacred animal, so much so that predominant population does not kill the cows and eat beef. Many do, but predominantly they don't. They keep them alive and use the milk, right? So paneer, the Indian cheese, is very important in certain parts of India more than others. But not till you get over there do you see cheese in the culture, and then you see it in there's different things like yak cheese and yak milk and other animal milk yogurts and cheeses in the mountainous parts of Asia. You know, the Tibetan diets and you know um, some of the Bhutan, some of those cultures you start seeing goat milk and yak and all these things. But yeah, very interesting where milk comes in and out of different cultures. So not a big stretch for Bailey's to say, oh yeah, great, let's it's a huge market, not only of vegetarians and vegans, but people with milk allergies. So check that out. Let's see. Bailey's launches vegan liquor made with almond milk, and you got to love it. You know how all the stuff you search comes back to haunt you, and you can see on my feed here, it's synthesizers and gear. But yeah, look at that, huh? Bailey's. I might have to try this just to give them some support. What kind of liqueur is that? I don't even know. Never had Bailey's. What does it taste like? Is it like a brandy kind of a thing? But they're saying pumpkin spice, hazelnut. Okay, this is a nice autumn, winter, Christmas kind of a thing. Okay, I'll think I'll try it. Bailey's hot chocolate. That sounds great. All right, spike it with some coffee. So what's it made of? Almond milk, almond essence, cane sugar, purified water, and real vanilla. So yeah, it's. Oh, so they have two versions. There's a dairy-free version that's got um, honey in it, which is fine, honey and beeswax. But they have a vegan version now. That's great. I tell you, folks, this is one of the most amazing things in our modern times. How many of these major companies are saying, "Okay, cool, why not?" And it's capitalism. These are companies looking at markets, and they're saying, "Wow, that's a big market." And you see things like that. You're like, is that an Impossible Burger, or is that? You never know. But that's Five Guys, so it's you know. Anyway, uh, yeah, very cool. So there we have it. That's our vegan product alert for today. And I always forget to bring this up too. There is a website, folks. If you punch in Meatless Monday, it's called mondaycampaigns.org, and they have a lot of stuff here. There's recipes, different resources for learning about vegetarian food, seasonal recipes. I want to get to this topic, if not next week, pretty soon. But I talk a bit about why would you bother to go vegetarian? Why would you do it? And many people have different reasons. They love animals to the extent they don't want to support the factory farms and all that. Your own health, right? Your own, the long list of things that you can access with plant-based diet. But the one that I think really sticks around is the environment, folks. We grow so much wheat and corn and soybeans and then feed it to animals. It's really an inefficient use of those land resources in the year 2020. It worked at one point when we had far less than 7 billion people, but we really are running into a problem. Again, not going to go on a whole rant about that. This. If you don't, then maybe, check it out. But I always want to make clear that I have total respect for people that pick and choose to eat flesh foods. If you total respect, I just want to gently urge you to spend a bit more, get it farm raised, get it uh, organic, get it sustainably raised and grown, and all of these things. Pasture fed lamb or beef or something. It's yes, it's more expensive, but it's showing you the real price of animal flesh. The stuff you're getting for cheap, wow. I just always want to call attention to that every week. The price you're paying on the back end because it's so cheap is just devastating. It's a price to the animals who go through a much more terrible time with the drugs and the steroids and being locked up on a concrete floor when you know inappropriate temperatures and being fed a diet they would never eat in the wild or in their natural state. And then you're also, it's very bad news for the workers. And we've talked about that a few times on this show. You know, we talked last week about 42,000 people in the animal slaughter industry infected with COVID, over 225 dead. And that was 2 weeks ago. The numbers are higher. But I just urge you to think about those other impacts besides your cholesterol, your arteries, all that stuff, which we can go back and forth on, because you can get very unhealthy on plant foods too, right? If you're sitting around inactive, eating potato chips, eating a lot of white flour, eating a lot of bread and margarine, and if you're eating a lot of processed foods, that's unhealthy too. And any of you who've seen this show, I'm clear on that. You want to eat a whole foods diet, and again, not meaning the store, but the concept of whole foods. So those are some other topics too. So one of the things I want to touch base on, I just watched a guy on Joe Rogan, who I find interesting. I don't agree with nearly everything he has to say, but pretty interesting guy, and he goes off the rails on some stuff. But he's, as you know, big bodybuilder, and he's really while he's had some vegetarians on his show, he's kind of got a vibe and attitude about plant-based eating. But he had a guy on there the other day, very interesting guy. I forget his name. I'll get that when I address this on the show. And the guy was talking about humans as carnivores, and which is always a stretch. I mean, obviously we can consume flesh foods, obviously, but to kind of push the envelope and try to lump us in with, lions and tigers and cats and these major carnivorous animals is a bit of a stretch. Um, but he said something very important, and I always point this out if I'm, for some reason, in a debate with people on meat, that if you're going to eat animal flesh, what actually makes the most sense uh, um, nutritionally is to eat organ meats. If you really want to argue for animal protein and animal nutrients, the minerals, the iron, the essential fats that certainly are in animal components, then you really want to eat organ meat. If you really want to optimize, you want to eat livers and kidneys and lungs and different components of a mammal or pretty much, yeah, we pretty much tend to eat mostly mammals, but certainly anything that people eat, bears and big cats and stuff. So that's something to think about. But we don't really. We kind of eat the muscular part of animals. So that's also very interesting that even within the nightmare of mass-produced animal foods, isn't that ironic? We skip the actual best part, which would be the brain, the heart, all of the organs I just listed, kidneys, liver, most of us are kind of grossed out even when we eat meat. So just something to think about, the inefficiency. I wanted to point out, here's that book, and a guest that I'm working on to come on is this guy, David Wolf. another old friend of mine, and he's one of the real voices of the raw foods movement for many years, and he's you know got a few books out and talked about raw foods for years. And I'm just going to kind of look at a quick quote in here. But one of the things that I want to cover in an upcoming show is stuff like how the human body compares to true carnivores. You know, these aren't fangs, folks. I have a friend who always says, "I've got these." Really? Yeah, that thing. Come on, please. You're going to tear a rabbit's throat out with that, because that's what carnivores can do. Um, so we're not carnivores. We've got teeth that can crush. These molars are super powerful, and so crushing seeds and nuts and leafy greens and stalky things. We tend to have to cook our meat or process it in some form. Sure, there's raw meat dishes like steak tartare, and there's raw fish, which is a much more mild type of flesh. But something to think about. We're much closer to the great apes and to the ungulates and to the mammals that we eat. And by that I mean we don't have fangs. Of course, chimpanzees and gorillas have fangs. They eat birds, and they'll even cannibalize occasionally. And just for protection, they're in a lot more violent environment. But most of the apes tend to be largely vegetarian. These giant gorillas are just sitting there calmly eating bamboo shoots, right? Panda bears, all that. So it's just something I want to leave you with to think about. That, and then you go down the line. The We have a long, puckered intestinal system, very long. I forget the factor, but it's a couple times the length of the human body for this long traveling, fiber pushing digestive system. You look at the intestinal tract of all the clear carnivorous animals. Again, a lion, a tiger, a mountain lion, any of these animals, and it's smooth, much shorter, and it just gets that flesh product through there a lot faster. It doesn't have those puckered sections, which in humans actually we have huge amounts of intestinal disease because of that puckering. Uh, Undigested food will just stay in there, and then we have a lot of issues. I don't have to explain that. People know that. But you look at things like our saliva pH, our blood pH, our stomach acid pH, and it really lines up with optimally digesting plant foods. Again, I'm not saying that you can't eat flesh or humans wouldn't digest flesh. Please don't hear that. But I'm saying not optimal. Clearly not optimal when you look at the amount of you know acidic issues that we're running into. When you look at the popularity of Pepsid and Nexium and all of these things, and when you look at these extreme carnivorous diets, the keto diet, um, back in the day, the Zone and the Atkins diet, all of these diets that are based on ketosis, it's all the same thing, just with a new name. They're all really Atkins diet, fine tuned for a cleaner, modern setting. And I applaud some of the. I've got friends on keto. I've got friends on, what's the other one? The paleo diet. Great in that it's getting people to get rid of processed foods. In the modern era, though, people have added in things like, these MCTs are really big in those diets, the medium chain triglycerides, coconut oil and different things like that. And people are moving towards less processed food. So I salute that. If you're on paleo or if you're keto, I do. I salute, because it's way cleaner than your typical American diet. It means you've gotten rid of the white flour and the processed breads and the bromated flour and the margarine, which you hardly see actually. You've gotten rid of these processed cheeses and you know um, just all this stuff sitting in a jar. Notice everything I just listed is plant based, so I'm absolutely agreeing with the paleo and the keto people that there's so much processed food. But everyone I know on keto or paleo, and I've known, I don't know, a dozen people in the past 5 to 10 years, that ketosis thing is a motherfucker, right? I know people that have had joint pains, that have had really serious acidic gut type stuff, irritable bowel. They've lost weight, they've looked great, they've gotten nice and trim, but there's this downside to the acidification that you're going to get. You're not a mountain lion, and so just eating, bacon and chicken breast and beef and lamb and pork on a continual basis and not touching much of any, you know, uh, uh, plant-based foods with any carbs in it. Of course, those folks also eat avocados, and sweet potato is like the furthest they'll go into glycemic foods. Some of them, I'm just jumping around. Some people don't even touch potatoes. Um, but it's just something to think about. Our body design versus, some of these diets. Um, I can't find the little chart here, but there's a great little chart in this book on. But you get the picture. And I urge you to do some research on human body design, um, versus some of these carnivores. Okay, so Frank Molina, yes, David Avocado Wolf, yes, he's an old friend. I haven't talked to him in years, but we got to know each other in the late '90s on his very first national tour. He was literally like in his car and like sleeping in it on some nights because he was very low budget, and he was driving around with his book in the back of the car and doing workshops and lectures at um, natural food stores and wherever, retirement centers and yoga centers in the city and whatnot. And so we had him at our store at Second Nature. We had him at the natural food store. And so for those of you who don't know, I spent over 15 years in natural foods retail, over 10 of which co-owning an award-winning natural food store with my late partner. And we had all these lectures that came in. And so David Wolf was one of them. And so he came and spoke at the store a couple times. Um, so cool. I'm going to jump off. As usual, I just wrap up with, if you've got a couple more comments. Yeah, turnips in Ireland. I know. Are they like a potato in a way? Yeah, they are a little. It's a root vegetable. It's a little different than a potato, but very, yeah, just a wonderful root vegetable. Turnips, really underrated. You can make chips out of them, like a potato, or you can chop them up and put them in very hot oil and put some salt on them. We like to bake them, and you can do like a mashed potato type thing. You can bake them and mash them and put some olive oil and spices. Delicious. Okay, it's a whiskey-based thing. The Bailey's, got it. Oh, Raymond Helfish, thank you so much. My Venmo is up in the description, but thank you, man. I always forget to do this part. I will always have this show for free, folks. But if you'd like to donate to cover, I do spend some money for the Zoom thing, Zoom Pro level, and all these other. You just got to get all these technologies happening and websites. But thanks, Raymond. So my Venmo and my PayPal are right up top, but I'll put my Venmo right in the chat as you requested. It's just my name with a dash. But thank you so much, all of you, and it's been great. In terms of a few commercials for what's coming up, I'm going to go and get right to work on prepping for. Little preview there, but I did a live stream yesterday, last night, which is right below us on Facebook here, if you'd like to check out some impromptu electronic music. And I've got some live music coming up. It's always kind of random. Just look out for it. But I tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I've got a chat. And it's going to be very exciting. I'm going to promote it right after this. You'll see it on here. And it's a little roundtable on Eddie Van Halen and the importance of Eddie Van Halen. And I've got some great guests, including Alex Skolnick from Testament, legendary guitarist from Testament. I've got Robbie Siheg Mangano, the incredible guitarist from Project Object, from Sean Lennon's group. Ghost of a Saber-Toothed Tiger. He's also from Ricky Lee Jones' band and a bunch of other stuff. I've got Alan Gowa, my dear buddy, who has trained thousands of young guitarists and middle-aged guitarists, and his insight into the revolution of Eddie Van Halen is unparalleled. Then I've also got the brilliant Matt Ferguson from Line 6, the effects company Line 6, and Yamaha, and he's been in a couple other companies. But another guy who goes back to the beginning of Eddie Van Halen and to the revolution in sound and equipment and technique. And then I've got a couple other guests that I'm waiting to confirm. But anyway, it'll be a fun, chill, just talking about Eddie Van Halen, and talking about guitars. So if you're into that kind of geeky, nerdy stuff, that's tomorrow at 7 Eastern. And then I've got a few more interviews that are going to drop. Tony Levin, I've got an interview with Tony Levin, another one with Adam Holtzman. Both of those should drop by the end of this week. I just put up the one with Steve Hunter. Wow, the great Steve Hunter. And you could find that right below here on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. Steve Hunter, if you don't know that name right off, he's one of the more influential guitarists in rock and roll because he was in Mitch Ryder's Detroit back in the late 60s, early 70s. And Alice Cooper band used to come watch him play. So come on, folks. He then later on, they were big fans of this guy. They just loved his guitar playing. You can hear some of the crossover. Mitch Ryder, Detroit. If you don't know about Mitch Ryder, please, again, one of the American greats who influenced tons of 70s rock music. But Steve Hunter went on to play on Lou Reed's Berlin album. It's about his third or fourth record, I think. And then he went on to play on all of the first half dozen Alice Cooper albums after the classic, the original Alice Cooper band, when Alice split off and did those great records, by the way. I mean, it's very hard to bounce back from a classic lineup. But Alice did those records. Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, Welcome to My Nightmare, in reverse order. Lace and Whiskey, The Alice Cooper Show. So Steve Hunter did all those. Then this is the mid 70s. Then he came back in 2011, 2016 to play with Alice again. So he's one of the backbones of the Alice Cooper sound, and in both ways, because again, he influenced Michael Bruce and Glenn Buxton to some degree, right? They were fans of his. Steve plays on the first Peter Gabriel album. So those amazing, again, just a left turn for someone coming out of Genesis and creating this whole new sound. Steve was a part of that. That beautiful, fingerstyle, Travis style guitar opening for Salisbury Hill, that beautiful acoustic. That's him. He played with Tracy Chapman, all kinds of people. He did the solos at the beginning of Aerosmith, Train Kept a Rollin'. That's not Perry or Whitford. That's this guy, Steve Hunter. So check out that interview. I just hit the tip of the iceberg there. Wonderful guy, wonderful player, a lot of stories. And we've got a few more of those coming up. So thanks so much, folks. Just giving a little bit of insight on the other stuff that I do. about to do a video soliciting a few more students. If you or anyone you know is a beginning guitarist or intermediate guitarist, wants guitar lessons, bass lessons, synthesis lessons, we can. I've got 2 synthesizer students where I'm breaking down synthesis from the very basics. What's an oscillator? What's a filter? What's a ladder filter? What's a VCA? What are the various types of filtering? What's a multi-mode gate? Okay, how do you change notes on a keyboard? What's control voltage? Um, how do you control pitches? How do you control gating? And what's a clock? What's a mult? All of these things and a lot more. What's an LFO? How does a low frequency oscillator operate? And what can you do to a filter or to the pitch of an oscillator or to really anything else in your system? Any of those things make any sense to you and you want to hire me to teach, I'm looking for work because the touring world is gone for the foreseeable future. So thanks so much. All right, one last sweep here, and then I'm going to run. And it's yoga time in 20 minutes, so I got to keep taking care of myself. Shirley, you've tried the plant butter. Yeah, that's really good. And right, we don't want margarine. Babe? Frank, I don't know Babe. Sounds interesting, though. Science and babes combined? Who could complain? Yeah, let me know what that is. Christian, thank you for stopping by. Raymond, again, thank you, bro. There's my Venmo. Detroit Wheels, yeah. Turnip Head Bobby was a friend of mine. Brandon Casey, thanks. I appreciate that. So, well, here's my email address. It's just my website, andre@guitartour.net. I appreciate you asking. So guitartour.net is my website, or andrechumley.com. It goes the same thing. And you can find all my socials from there. And guitartour.net is my website. Guitar Tour is my socials, also Instagram, Twitter. Just go at Guitar Tour. Okay, cool. I just put the PayPal in there. Thank you, Brain Dead Casey, for asking. You're not so brain dead after all. I think I hit all the questions, folks. What a wonderful day. What a wonderful time. Thank you, Artimus Pyle. Wow. So enriched to have that man as a friend in my life and someone I've played music with and hope to again and keep hearing his stories. So do go out and check out the movie. Just punch in Lynyrd Skynyrd movie at Amazon or YouTube. And keep taking care of yourself. Keep going meatless every Monday, and hey, let it leak into Sunday and Tuesday, and keep taking care of yourself. Stay positive in these crazy times, and we'll see you next time I'm online, and hopefully in person someday. Cheers.